Leadership Conclave 2014 got underway with a panel discussion on that critical and differentiating asset, talent.
As we talk about talent, the first question that comes to my mind is, what is talent? One of the first assumptions I think all of us makes is that talent actually is an asset. And that's the first one I'd like this panel to challenge. So perhaps I could start with you.
In my view, talent is anything that adds value to both short-term goals as well as long-term goals. Your quarterly results are dependent on what kind of profit after tax you generate. So any talent in the form of human beings, individuals, teams that can add value to that is important to nurture, to develop, and to recruit. And then, of course, talent has long-term goals also with the strategies of the company. In my learning, there are various assumptions that I've learned to challenge. One is when the chips are down, many companies make the mistake of not recruiting young trainees. I've noticed that in companies that I've worked in the past, including a public utility company, when I started my career more or less, they took waves of trainees. And these waves of trainees are what constitute today's top management, including in my current company. So it's very important to be consistent with talent. One can't be knee-jerk and switch on, switch off. The second is, I'm glad that with Satya Nadella's appointment, some assumptions have been challenged with respect to the stereotypes about where you qualify from. You don't have to necessarily be from a particular type of an institute to make it to the top. So there's a whole gamut of factors that go into what makes you successful.
Thank you, Yogi. If I could move then to Ashok.
So we find that people want faster and more meaningful careers. So it's no more velocity of careers, it's also whether you're adding value and meaning to my overall time that I spend with you. And therefore, in that line, employee and investor is starting to merge to say that in the time I stay invested with you, are you adding value to my life? And that value seems to come with not just fast-track career growth, movement and so on, but also with a balance. And the younger generation clearly saying, I'm not going to dedicate 14 hours a day because I have other pursuits, and do you encourage me in that wider span which I call life, which you call career with you. So how do you merge these two aspirations is coming up as in our context as an important objective to handle. We do find people willing to invest and are mobile for the right purpose. And when young people are allowed that early enough in their life, I think mobility becomes a real value add. And when you delay it, it becomes too late. So are we time valuing people decisions? So even the best of decision, if it's late, it's too bad. So are we time valuing HR decisions, or is the sheer lethargy of the process holding back great careers? Is a very defining thought for us.
Go ahead, Prabhu.
I at least very strongly believe that the definition of talent is and must be a moving definition. The challenge with conventional thinking is that we brand a person a talent, and is supposed to stick with that person for a lifetime. Unfortunately, the realities of life do not allow that to happen. And that is where even as HR practitioners, I think we are guilty. Because we like to say, oh, he's an A-class talent and therefore he's A-class for talent. I have worked in an IT firm. And I remember the time was when Java skills were in short supply. And therefore you looked at Java talent with premium. And I've also seen the same environment change where there was a glut because every school, every corner had a Java training academy. And there was a glut of Java skills, and what happened? You redefined talent. So talent is a moving definition. Talent is a function of demand and supply. And if these are realities of life and business, I think we must be very pragmatic not to get stuck in an algorithm which stays a lifetime. So that's one point I want to share as my point of view.
Let me hand it over now to Adil for his stand on talent.
Thank you. Talent behavior in people market is very similar to commodity behavior in commodity markets, as much as we would like to spiritualize the whole concept. If that is the given situation, it leads us to a duality. The duality is that talent looks upon trying to maximize its value adds because it is investing into your corporation on the one hand, and therefore tends to be subjected to market arbitrage and therefore transient by nature. And on the other hand, the enterprise need for sustainability of talent is very, very high, and it cannot afford to have a talent which it is not sure of it is going to stay in the organization or not. Given that situation, I believe that managing stars called talent in your enterprise is not really your challenge. Your challenge is building the capability in your organization to manage the talent ecosystem, which is constantly going to help you to be creating talent from inside and attracting talent from outside. And that investment of your time in building the capability of your enterprise to manage the talent ecosystem is going to determine.
But let me invite Sunita to tell us about the Wipro view.
The topic on talent today, and I think it is far more relevant to an industry that I represent, which is the IT industry, because this is one place where the input, or the raw material as we call it in any other organization, to get you what you want in terms of an output is nothing but the talent. So all the more focus, all the more relevance to an industry like ours. So on one hand, when we say that talent is equal to the greatest assets we have, I think the asset can only get you thus far, because with the way that change in technology has been happening, with the kind of innovations that have been happening, I think it's no longer enough for us to ensure that the talent we have are just remaining as assets, as much as investors. And over here, I would like to take a different spiel on investor. I look at them as owners. Because until and unless you're able to develop the ownership capability in that individual, the innovation streak, the kind of startup mentality, the kind of joy of working, long hours really don't matter. I think that you will be able to imbibe only if you're able to have that spirit of ownership within that individual, and hence talent becomes a lot more critical for an organization like ours.
You know, at sort of no point in our history has the issue of human capital been as important a source as it is today in terms of basic differentiation for organizations. And we expect that trend is going to continue well into the future. And so therefore the imperative on HR today is one of actually transformation. And we find that transformation is already underway.